crash on I-44 early Sunday morning.
That site a far cry from where we were just several hours ago. We get a little break from the rain, but we've got more coming this week with the latest from the Skywatch Weather Center.
And tired of those robocalls? How scammers are making it even harder to avoid them.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
U.S. Marshal Service is now on the hunt for 3 missing inmates who escaped from the Barry County Jail last Friday. This is KOAM News at noon. I'm Tanya Bach. Tapping our first 7 minutes. Authorities say the 3 jail escapees are no longer in the area, but that the manhunt is still underway. 29-year-old Lance Stevens, 29-year-old Matthew Crawford, and 37-year-old Christopher Blevins escaped from the Barry County Jail on Friday. Stevens was being held on drug charges and unlawful use of a weapon. Crawford is facing felony stealing charges, and Blevins, drug charges, vehicle tampering, and unlawful possession of a firearm. The 3 men are considered armed and dangerous. The sheriff says if you have any tips, call 911 immediately. Joplin police released the name of the man killed in Sunday's fatal crash on Interstate 44. The crash happened just before 2:30 Sunday morning, and police say 44-year-old Juan Fuentes Jr. from Carthage, Missouri, was driving a motorized scooter in the outside lane of I-44 eastbound when he lost control, crashed, and was thrown from the scooter. Authorities say Fuentes was then struck by multiple passing vehicles. The crash closed the interstate for 3.5 hours. The Joplin Police Major Crash Team is working the case. They're still looking for witnesses who may have witnessed the initial crash. Well, we're getting a little bit of break in the rain from as wet as it was earlier this morning.
But I'll tell you what, with all that water on the ground, if you step outside, you're going to feel that humidity kicking up.
Yeah.
It's going to be a little bit of a steamy afternoon. But Tanya, at least we get some blue sky and some sunshine as we have now kicked everything off, even on the east side of Springfield. As a matter of fact, the hardest rain now making its way over the Boot Heel and through the Mississippi Valley as well. Now, remember, we still do have flood warnings in effect. Those are county-wide flood warnings lasting all the way until 6 o'clock this evening. And really, with the additional rainfall that we're going to pick up, especially for counties right along the Kansas and Oklahoma state line and then venturing south of I-44 into southwest Missouri, probably going to see the reemergence of those before the end of the week. There we are over 7th and Rangeline. 77 degrees is where we stand. Not a huge discrepancy in our temperature and our heat index, only 2 degrees right now. But we're going to anticipate that increasing to about 4 to 5 degrees this afternoon. As the system rolled through, winds now moving out of the south, a little uptick there at Joplin Regional Airport, but we'll stay in the 5 to 10 mile per hour range for this afternoon and eventually kick back up to about 10 to 15 miles per hour tonight. Now, speaking of tonight, as we transition from Monday into Tuesday, we do stay out of the even marginal category, but anytime you find yourself in the light green, we also know what that means. Okay, so here we go. Get ready for Tuesday morning timing, almost just like what we had this morning. And as it rolls through, that's what I'm talking about, down to the south right there. You'll also notice that Tuesday's thunderstorm activity wants to hold on just a little bit longer than this morning did, and then we're going to do it again on Wednesday. Coming up here in just a little bit, Tanya, let's talk a little bit about that humidity that we'll have for the rest of the afternoon. Also kind of go through the next 2 days, because while our afternoons are going to look glorious each and every morning, it is going to be thunderstorms and umbrellas.
That's right. We'll keep an eye on that for sure. All right. Thanks, Michael. Well, tanks roll through Normandy, France to honor the men who fought the Nazis 78 years ago. Just a handful of D-Day veterans returned for this year's anniversary celebration, now in their 90s. Back in 1944, an Allied armada floated off Normandy as troops landed on the beach. Metal filled the air. In a bipartisan effort, Congress has approved the Congressional Gold Medal presented to Army Rangers of World War II who stormed the beaches of Normandy. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson faces a challenge from his own party today that could force him out of office. The so-called no confidence vote follows a series of scandals. At least 15% of the members of his own Conservative Party, at least 54 members of Parliament, submitted letters saying they do not have confidence in their own Prime Minister. Britain's 4-day celebration honoring Queen Elizabeth is over, and she says it left her humbled and deeply touched. The Queen appeared on the balcony of Buckingham Palace one more time last night. Holly Williams reports on the last days of the Platinum Jubilee, a party that had something for almost everyone.
There aren't many 96-year-olds who get a pop concert staged in their honour. Serenaded by Alicia Keys and Diana Ross. But this was a musical celebration of Queen Elizabeth's 70-year reign. A thank you from the nation, including her son, Prince Charles.
Your Majesty, Mummy.
The Queen was represented by 3 generations of her family, though she stayed at home. She's had mobility issues in recent months.
Tea?
But she still managed to steal the show.
Never mind.
You would like a marmalade sandwich? I always keep one for emergencies.
In a video she made with another icon, Paddington Bear.
I keep mine in here.
The eccentric British humour sent the crowd wild.
Happy Jubilee, ma'am. And thank you for everything.
That's very kind.
Yesterday, the Queen's Gold State Coach joined a carnival through central London with a performance by Ed Sheeran and watched by a misbehaving Prince Louis. And around the country, people came together for street parties, around 16,000 community get-togethers. From a meet and greet with these corgis, Prince and Lily. They play the part of the Queen's real dogs on the TV series The Crown. To Rigdale Street in East London, where they had a royal-themed hat parade and the Queen made a 2-dimensional appearance.
It's like 70 years, you know, that is of just being steadfast, and she made that promise to serve her people and she's still doing it now.
This lady told us she remembered watching the Queen's coronation as a small child.
She's been the Queen while I've been alive for so many years, yes. She's just been there all the time.
And last night, finally, another glimpse of the Queen on the balcony of Buckingham Palace. Send her victorious, happy and glorious, they sang. God save the Queen.
The Queen is now back home here inside Windsor Castle. She said in a statement last night that while she didn't attend all the events at her Platinum Jubilee, she remains committed to serving her people to the best of her ability. Holly Williams, CBS News, Windsor Castle.
That's a look at today's top stories and weather in our first 7 minutes. Up next on KOAM News at noon, how scammers are getting around federal regulations designed to prevent robocalls. And later, we're making the ultimate tuna melt in the Mr. Food Test Kitchen. Americans received 4 billion robocalls in May, and that's according to the spam blocking app YouMail. As Christine Lazar shows us, scammers are now getting around federal regulations that were supposed to crack down on robocalls.
The caller ID came through as Chase Bank, so Joanna Gans wasn't caught off guard when the person on the line said there was suspicious activity on her account. She says they told her she needed to transfer money out of her account via Zelle to prevent any more fraud.
Everything he said led me to believe, because of the way he spoke and the exact verbiage that the bank uses, he had it down pat.
Turns out the call was a spoof. It wasn't Chase calling, but a scammer. And within minutes, Gans was out more than $2,500.
I really never thought it would happen to me. I mean, that's my rent and bill money.
Last June, the FCC required all cell phone carriers to adopt caller ID authentication technology called STIR/SHAKEN. The goal was to prevent illegally spoofed robocalls. But since then, the number of robocalls getting through to consumers has risen back to the level they were before the regulation.
Problem is the bad guys aren't sitting still. Instead of just making up phone numbers, they're getting real phone numbers. And now their real phone numbers are authenticated, they look like they're good, and they get through.
Alex Quilici is the CEO of UMail, a robocall blocking app. He says technology like Stir Shaken isn't enough to crack down on spam calls. He says we also need more enforcement.
You want enforcement to go not only after the bad guys, but some of the carriers that are supporting them.
We did reach out to Gans's bank, Chase, and a spokesperson tells me because she authorized the transfer, the bank will not return her money. They also said the bank will never call you and ask for your personal information. They will only ask for that if it's you who called them. In Los Angeles, I'm Christine Lazar, CBS News.
Still to come on the KOAM News at noon, Mr. Food.
You've probably had this in a diner or maybe at home and you didn't know what else to make. Wondering what it is? Stick around. We'll show you.
But first, Michael Hayslip returns with your complete forecast.
While we're able to squeeze in a little break of dry weather, it's not going to last too long. As a matter of fact, by the time we get to the KOAM News at 6, 9, and 10, I know that that's what Doug's going to be concentrated on, is what's going to move in. So while we do get this break, let's talk about what's on the ground right now. For the month, 1.24 inches. That's at Joplin Regional Airport, okay? I want to be very specific about where our daily almanac data comes from, because these June rain totals that we see in portions of Labette and Montgomery counties throughout southeast Kansas, where you see it indicated there in the orange, upwards anywhere from 4 to 5 inches of rain throughout those little dots right there. Very, very impressive, as it is up in Vernon County as well, in the southern or northern portion of southwest Missouri. And that is, of course, why we have flood warnings in effect, county-wide flood warnings, as a matter of fact, for about, in some portions, 9 parts of counties in southeast Kansas, lasting all the way until this evening. And then you see those dark swaths right there. Let's take that one by Fredonia, where it's going to be the Fall River. That flood warning lasting until tomorrow morning. Down at the bottom of your screen, the Neosho River, lasting until Wednesday. And then back at the top of your screen on the right-hand side in southwest Missouri, that's the Osage River, that lasting until Tuesday night. So it's a little bit here, there, and everywhere with those warnings. Now, at least the rain's not falling from the sky as we find ourselves about quarter afternoon. Northwest breeze, so the wind's been shifting just all around the compass. But what that's doing is helping us out and not getting us too hot, because the 24-hour temperature change substantially warmer, especially as that front moved through, compared to places like, say West Plains and Little Rock, where they're in the midst of a double-digit drop because they have just now had that rain move on the other side of the Mississippi. So as we get into the peak afternoon hours, remember, in between, say, about 2:30, 4 o'clock, is when we'll really begin to heat up, and that humidity, that relative humidity, not going to go anywhere. It's the result of a whole bunch of Gulf moisture. And this coming out of the Gulf, keeping us very, very wet, is exactly why we can blame everything down to the south for what will transpire Tuesday morning and Wednesday morning before we finally get a break. At least the Skywatch Storm Tracker has pushed everything off to our east for the time being. Give you an idea of the national picture right here. Almost a little split in the jet stream as far as it being very flat and then breaking where we see it over the boot heel of Missouri, and then kind of reforming there as it works through the southeastern portion of the United States. One final check on Hurricane Alex, still a hurricane, but this will be the last time that we actually need to check on it, as it will dissolve into a low pressure system probably by tonight. It's really going to dissipate quickly. Weather trend for our next 24 hours. Be nice if those skies would clear overnight, because if the clouds stick around, I'll tell you what, it's going to be muggy tomorrow morning too to start. So here we go, just in time for the Tuesday morning drive. It'll formulate out to the northwest. And while it starts up to the north right there, it really will be down to the south and the central portion that are probably going to absorb the most rain right there, because this thing's going to last all the way into tomorrow afternoon. So our timeline, a little bit more extended certainly than what we experienced today. Then we're going to clear off Tuesday afternoon and evening, just like we did today. And then here we go again on Wednesday. And that's why I want to concentrate on what we see down to the south, especially right along our state lines. As far as the 7-day forecast, well, Thursday, let's keep our eyes on the prize there, because that'll finally be the one dry day that we have. Because, Tanya, guess what happens on Friday just in time for the weekend? We're going to kick right back in with thunderstorms. The one on Friday has got a cold front behind it. At least mild temperatures. The humidity won't be such a factor on Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah, at least we have a nice weekend. Something to look forward to.
It feels like it's a long time coming right now.
All right, thanks, Michael. We take this time to honor today's four-state hero, Purple Heart recipient Frank Hall in the U.S. Army. The soldier from Seneca, Missouri, joined the 4th Infantry Division, 22nd Regiment, 2nd Battalion in 1942. He earned the Bronze Star in addition to the Purple Heart, fighting in battle for 168 days before he was killed in action in Germany on November 20th, 1944. To Sergeant Frank Hall, we thank you, our four-state hero. Today we take a dive into a simple but tasty dish. Howard shows us how to make the ultimate tuna melt in the Mr. Food Test Kitchen.
Every once in a while we choose a recipe that seems so simple, you might think, who needs a recipe for that? Today's recipe might sound like one of those, but once you taste it, you'll understand why it's so special. First of all, when it comes to buying tuna, I don't believe that all tuna is equal. Maybe I'm a tuna snob or it's just the way I grew up, but for me, tuna should be white, solid, and packed in water. And then it needs to be drained really well. You can do that by pressing the lid into the can, or you can pick up one of these tuna presses, which makes this a breeze. After it's flaked, we add some mayo. And then to make this the ultimate tuna melt, some Italian dressing and sweet relish. After it's mixed, we place a few slices of tomato on some rye bread, top it with the tuna, and layer on some cheddar cheese. When this gets baked long enough for the cheese to melt and the bread to get all toasty, it's done. And since we leave this topless, it's best to eat this with a fork and knife. The recipe for what we call the ultimate tuna melt is on our website and would be perfect to serve with a bowl of soup and some chips. I'm Howard of the Mr. Food Test Kitchen, where today we found a basic yet tasty way for you to say, ooh, it's so good.
I could do that. You can find this recipe along with a lot more good food from Mr. Food Test Kitchen online. Just go to our website at KOAMnewsnow.com. Here's a look at our four-state market prices.
We're already throwing up some 80s down in the south, so factor in that humidity. It'll feel about like, 82, 84 for this afternoon. Remember, coming up tomorrow morning, additional thunderstorm activity rolls in, going to carry us just in time for the morning commute, all the way till probably a little bit past the noon hour.
All right. What do we have coming up tonight at 5?
Well, at 5 every year, more than 20,000 pregnancies nationwide result in stillbirth. Now, the nation's first specialty clinic for women who've experienced stillbirth is opening. In Health Watch, we're going to hear one family's personal story and their advice for parents. Plus, we're going to learn more about Missouri Southern's new degree program that gives former students a pathway to get back in the game. And we're going to sit down with the new president at Pittsburgh State University. Hope you join us for those stories, a whole lot more. Of course, it's all coming up today on KOAM News at 5.
All right, thank you, Dal. Thanks for joining us for KOAM News at Noon. We'll see you right back here at 5 o'clock.